up in the clouds. One chance, know we'll be found.
Okay. Rick.
Good morning. Good morning. That was Alex Warren, and I have Kenneth ONeal here in the house.
Good morning.
Good
I'm
morning.
just honored to be here. Thank you.
I was splish splashing as I was driving in.
Yeah. What was that? There used to be a song.
Yeah, splish splash.
I was taking a bath.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
And it was raining. There's one street over here that really had a lot of water on
It did. I had to kind of cross slowly, and I saw somebody cross before me, so I thought, okay, all right, here we go.
Oh, a low water crossing.
Not really.
No.
It was just, it turned into one because there was so much drainage there.
Well,
yeah.
I'm glad we made it in.
That's right. That's right.
This is a super start of a new week.
It is. It is.
And, I just look forward every week to coming here.
Nice.
It's a great way to start the week with the word of the week. That's what we've been calling it.
Been
for
calling
years.
a little hint.
And I, we've been involved in doing this. A single word.
Okay.
That challenge. We wanted to challenge people with it. What did we say? Write it down.
Okay.
Use it in your language. Use it in your actions. And we have had some wonderful words.
Yes.
Really
Gosh, how many years have you been doing that? Uncountable.
I know. I used to do it on the other radio station in the afternoon.
Yeah.
It had to be before COVID.
There you go. That's a long time.
So isn't that amazing how we divide things now?
Yeah. BC, before COVID or after.
Okay, after COVID. That's right. So, but starting this week,
yes,
we're going to take a step further and a step higher.
Ooh, something new?
Yes.
All right.
So why do we want to make this change? And the change is actually, instead of using one single word, which I have the feeling that a lot of people, they take this as a dictionary and they think, I'll write that word down, but I'm not, probably won't use it this week.
Oh, okay.
So maybe next week I'll use it. But I've got it in my dictionary. And
I wrote it down.
I don't want people to look at these words that way. Yep. Words are very important. Words are very important. But a thought actually transforms. The word only informs. We want transformation is what we're looking for.
Gotcha.
And it really came to me when I was writing the book, Balance in Crisis. Do people even realize what balance is?
Okay. And
so I just want to take it higher, and a word gives a definition, but a thought gives a direction.
Ooh, nice. Okay.
All right. Where are we going? And we always say, what are we becoming? And we have to be before we can do, and being and doing the right thing, then we can have by serving other people. So each week we've always shared the words. So what we're going to do now is that these powerful thoughts. And I think I'm going to give an example today as we start this new journey.
Okay.
Right? Because I believe in a thought. A word has one definition, but a thought has so many avenues you can go down on this journey.
Applications, perhaps.
Application. That's a great word. And I come up with implementation.
Nice.
Most businesses fail because they know what to do, but they don't implement
do it.
So what we want is that from this idea of a thought, we want to transform people's lives. And so to live better, we must think better. All right. So we have this thing that says that, our mindset is our habit of right thinking. Then we go into a strategy phase where it's the habit of right planning.
Nice.
And then we take action. So we had changed our mindset, fixed it on where we're headed, have a strategy. We've planned to work. And now what do? Work the plan.
I've
You
heard
got
that.
it.
I've
You
heard
heard that before.
Yeah.
So it's a habit of right implementation. So from now on, we're going to talk about thoughts and
Okay.
ideas,
Okay.
concepts. All right. And so I'm going to give an example of what
Okay.
I'm talking about here.
Okay.
So a thought for the week. Your life will not rise above the level of your thinking.
Okay.
So yes, all things start with a thought. Every action you take, I mean, it's all right here in the
Starts there, doesn't it?
right here in this frontal, what do they call
cortex?
it?
Frontal lobe. Frontal lobe.
Yep.
Frontal
Right
lobe.
there's where it is,
Yeah.
right behind your forehead.
And it's not fully developed until like
25.
Yeah.
That's why you can't talk to an 18-year-old. Their minds. No, I'm only kidding.
When they do silly things, I say, yeah, your frontal lobe's not fully
That's
developed
right.
yet. It's okay.
You're not there. Okay. I didn't really realize that though until I read when I was doing this. But
after your frontal lobe was
that's
developed,
fine.
right?
Mine's come a long way. So every action you take, every decision you make, relationships you build, it all started with a thought.
Nice.
So the thought, that's where we start. So so if your thoughts are scattered, then you're going to feel scattered.
Oh yeah, I can attest to that.
So you can see. So thoughts can be negative, and we shouldn't accept all thoughts.
True.
And I'm going to walk real quickly through it. I think I had 5 steps as to how do you use a thought.
Okay.
But so the question is, what is happening to us? What is happening to me? What is happening to you? And in the moment, what is happening to me? But the question should be, what am I thinking about what is happening to me?
There you go.
So you got something to but why is it happening? What is the purpose of it? So thoughts become beliefs, beliefs become actions, actions become habits, and habits are your life.
There you go.
All right.
There you go.
So guard your thinking. As we go through the week, we always say to guard your mental input. We always want you to do that.
Sure. So
here's a strong idea for this. Okay, so the definition of a thought formed in the mind, we talked about being an idea. So the origination, it's really amazing. And we always talk about the origination of words, where they come from, which were thoughts years ago. So it comes from an old English word meaning the process of thinking or a thought. And it even came down in the early days to compassion. Now, what do we think about compassion? Because that is your human concern. So even in the early days, it was about your mental activity and your caring. So that's where it came from. And I think that I've even made this statement on this program in the past that we have 50, 60,000 thoughts a day.
Wow.
But that was in one survey or one testing or something. The literature I see now is that 6,000 or 7,000.
Wow.
Which it probably that's a little more plausible. A little bit, but that's a lot of thinking.
And does it matter male or female? Because I understand we talk differently. So I wonder if we take in
talk
thoughts
differently. And women usually say more words in a day than a man. Is what I've heard.
That's what I've heard.
But you know why, don't you?
Uh-oh.
They have to repeat everything because the man didn't get it the first time.
Sounds like you heard a sermon that we had yesterday.
Oh, really? No, I didn't do that. So what is the journey of a thought? A journey of a thought.
Oh, neat.
Okay. So there's something, a memory, an experience, some kind of stimuli that actually starts you thinking. And it is in that frontal cortex. That's where it always starts.
Frontal lobe.
All right. So one of the things I want to make sure that we get through, and I'm flipping that because I've always got tons and tons of stuff. So
you take lots of thoughts and then make them.
And I talk into my little thing and it prints out.
Nice. Nice.
So the reason that I'm really changing is that from just one single word is like I was saying, the dictionary idea. But I think that as we continue to think, and people will begin to relate to these thoughts.
Sure.
And a lot of people relate to a quote. So let's do the one today. What are we giving? What are we giving? What is our contribution to people? Because words are very, very important, but we cannot give what we don't have. True. And everybody has something to give. And I always like to break this down to 5 major pillars here in life. And that would be your knowledge, which relates then to wisdom, and then to your experiences. And those 3 things will actually give you your understanding of life.
Sure.
And then it ends up with a word we've already used this morning, and that is compassion. So quickly, knowledge is learning. It is information. And we always talk about here is let's be a life learner. You know, a lot of people know things, but they don't know what to do with them. So that leads to the second one that we mentioned, and that is wisdom.
Okay.
And wisdom is the right use of your knowledge. And it's knowing like when to move and when to wait, and when to speak, when to be silent.
Sounds
and
like
thirdly,
Ecclesiastes there.
It does. You know, I think 99.9% of all this stuff comes from the Holy Scriptures.
Probably.
So, but there's no shortage of information today, and we can get it in the snap of your finger.
Yeah.
But then after that becomes your experience. And it really takes time for experience to come because it has to do with work. And a lot of people, they love work. They sit down and go to sleep beside it. No, that's a joke. Experience, though, can be expensive. It can cost time and it costs money.
Yeah.
But experience is the third one. And then the understanding comes forth. And it really goes deeper. It really goes deep. Once you get the 3 first pillars, then you get understanding. And it's actually the ability to connect all these dots, everything that's going on. So understanding. And a lot of people don't have understanding, or what we might say is right understanding, because of the things that are challenging them in their knowledge and their wisdom. So finally we get to compassion, and the compassion brings it all together. So here, one thing I like about this idea of changing this to thoughts is that we know we cannot do everything we want to do in one day. So on one period here in Monday morning, we can't do everything related to our thinking, to our strategies, to our action. So I'm hoping that this idea of the thought will continue to next week. And this way, we no longer just look at it as a word.
Right.
We look at it as something that can change our life. And words can. Words are very important.
Yeah.
So we can.
Seem to describe the thoughts.
They do.
Yeah.
But we always go back to, we hear about garbage in, garbage out. That's why we have to guard our mind, guard our thoughts, guard the input that we put into our mind. You cannot give what you don't possess. So that garbage in, garbage out is so important. What you always want to do is like we've talked about this sin of the desert. All right. If you're in the desert and everybody's out there and they're walking and you meet somebody on the path, and you look at them and you smile. So you're giving a smile,
Yeah.
and they're probably tired and whatever. But you can say, "There's water up around the bin."
Right.
Up around the bin, you get a drink of water. And that's the way I look on life. God has blessed me to be able to share all this. I mean, I love learning. I love reading. I love history. I got great biographies I love. Number one, I'm a Christ follower. And so I believe that I have been given a calling to share what I have, to share. And so I want to do that. And I don't want to be guilty of the sin of the desert.
Right.
I want to share.
Share the knowledge.
Ask the question, what is your weekly contribution to people? What is your weekly contribution to the people in your circle, in your environment? And so each week, we want to encourage people to take inventory. Where is your heart? I mean, that's the center right there. And so you just need to take inventory of your heart, take inventory of your mind. What are those thoughts that you're going through?
Yeah.
And so I think that, always looking at it from a thought kind, because that's really where it is. So let's have a look at this as we finish, a 5-step coaching guide for your thoughts. Okay. So these are very practical. So the first one is to notice, identify, notice what you are thinking about. Slow down, pay attention, and think. What
about
am
your
I?
Thoughts.
Thinking about my thoughts.
Yeah.
In other words, what am I saying to myself right now? What am I saying right now? What story am I telling myself?
Right.
What conclusion am I jumping to? I've heard people say, that guy gets a lot of exercise. All he does is jump to conclusions.
Ooh, I haven't heard that one. Yeah. Good.
So see,
That's
there
good.
you learned another
There
one.
you go. There you
Okay.
go.
So notice what you're thinking about. And if it's negative, what is that Bob Newhart says? Stop it.
Stop it.
Stop it. Don't do it. So name the thought. Name what you're thinking about and be honest and be authentic when you're doing it. Is this a thought of fear? Fear is the false evidence appearing real.
Nice.
And I heard someone do a study on fear. And did you know that the human species is the only one that has fear? I mean, do you think that a giant, beautiful eagle, as he comes down out of the sky and he's headed toward seeing that fish, and he reaches down, but he misses the fish, do you think he says, "Oh, I'm a failure"?
No, I'm hungry.
I'm hungry. That's right.
Try again.
So, but is the thought,
Yeah.
Is it a prideful thought? We did some studying yesterday on being proud, and God says that's probably one of the worst things you can do, is be prideful. Angry, faith-filled. Is it a wise thought? So name your thought, be honest. Then test the thought. Now, this is important. Test your thinking. Is it the truth? Is it helpful or is it damaging to people? And a biggie here is, does your thought align with your values?
Right.
Is this moving me toward balance and alignment? Is it moving me toward my goals? Because we used to say at the Greystone Preparatory School, if it is not an activity that moves you toward getting an appointment to the academy, do not do that. Do not do it. Like they were told, do not stay up all night and play video games. That's not moving you to Annapolis.
Right.
All right. Number 4, replace the thought. Do not leave a vacuum. In other words, when you take a bad thought out, what does Tom Ziegler say? Replace every bad habit with a good habit.
Mm-hmm.
So replace it. Don't leave it. Replace all lies and untruths with truth. Replace fear with faith.
Mm-hmm.
Replace resentment with forgiveness. Confusion with clarity. And the last one with quit making excuses and be responsible for what you do. And then 5, repeat the better thought. So be truthful, be faithful, be forgiving, be clear, be responsible. So, one of the things I was thinking about is that, in a great marriage, the word that comes to me is that compassion word, which means humility. And humility means respect and honor. So that thought, to get that kind of marriage, and these people that have been married 50 or 60 years, one time in their thinking process, they thought about, I choose you.
Right.
And when I do, I give you honor, respect, and devotion. A lot of great words there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, I think that this idea of a thought, we'll take that thought. Now think about it. What was the thought? You can't give what you don't possess.
Yeah.
And how do we give? So that leads, it's a lot of journeys that we could take on.
That's wonderful.
And there's a lot of that. So the idea, it's not that words, we're not going to replace words, because words are important and we have to have them.
And it's part of how you define a thought, I think.
That's right. That's how you, that's right. You got it. That's how you get to the thought.
Yeah.
So this idea of, let's think about what we're doing. And I'm believing that it's going to help me continue to serve my purpose by all of this information, all this knowledge, wisdom, and compassion that I have for people. I think that it's going to help get that message out. And that's what we want. We want more people listening and more people becoming better.
Awesome.
Because, in this next book that I'm writing, it's the one on the great debate.
You're on a next one.
And we have to have these effective conversations. And I believe that we have to have an ongoing conversation.
Right.
You and I have these conversations, but we only meet once a week, but we have this ongoing conversation.
That's right.
So, but anyway, last Friday I had a great coffee.
Nice.
With a young man out in Ingram. And he's a tattoo artist.
Nice.
Yes.
Cool.
But 15 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to have that.
Yeah.
Because I had too much bias, too much prejudice.
There you go. Your thoughts, your experiences, perhaps.
That's right. Because
that.
What did we hear years ago about people with tattoos? But I found the guy to be very creative.
Yeah.
He was intuitive. He was smart. And our coffee and our conversation was delightful.
Awesome.
And we are already scheduled for 2 weeks. We're going to get together again. So see, I created a relationship. A great friendship already. And I think I have things that I can serve him by giving him some experience, some wisdom.
It sounds reciprocal too.
It is very much so.
Yeah. So if somebody else wants to have that conversation with you.
Right. And that's why I brought it up. Yeah, let's do it. I love the coffee. I love having a conversation. And let's take this to another level. A high level of being kind, being considerate. Kindness is not a random act. Kindness is for always.
Yes.
Always be kind. And if you take that as your thought, always be kind. Just the word kindness, everybody says I'm kind, but have you really thought about it? And in your thought about kindness, is that a kind thought that I just had? Really challenge what you put in your mind.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
yeah, 830-285-7010 in the Hill Country.
Okay.
Or go to the website. We have a little calendar on there. You can set up a session with us.
And that's CrowNeal.
CrowNeal.com.
Okay.
Very easy.
Great.
And if you want a copy of the Balance in Crisis book, it's CrowNeal.com/books.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Kenneth. Great conversation today.
She grew up with the children of the stars.